Receivers coach Garrett McGuire said, "It's about the players, not the plays."
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey gang, DP here, Derrick, Pearson, Lincoln, America. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. Again, this is what we're talking about. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Mark Onweiler, let them know about Nutrafol.
Thank you, DP. This episode of Locked On Huskers is brought to you by Nutrafol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides a whole body healthy approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Their hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising your sexual health. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months. You can take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Nutrafol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. DP, back to you.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Good hair. We'll talk about that. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers first watch and listen each and every single day. A couple of things to make note of. One, if you have not subscribed, please do so. Click down below. Get this content. Just get the alert saying, "Hey, the content's been listed. New content content is out there for you." Garrett McGuire said, "Players, not plays," and there's some importance to that. There's also one of the biggest challenges of summer camp / fall camp is verbiage and the ability to communicate. We'll talk about that. And then, that always question when it comes to camp time, and those live sessions always lead to this sort of discussion. So who's ahead? Is Husker offense or the black shirts? We'll talk about that all in this episode. I want to start with players. And Garrett McGuire said a thing that intrigued me because it's a phrase that I've used, and there's several different offshoots of it. I mean, some people will say it's never about X's and O's; it's always about Jimmys and Joes. And the importance behind that, especially when you're talking about a mesh, and a mesh in this particular case is the crossing and intersecting of old styles of play, old language that's being used, old schemes that are being used, and old players from an old roster and an old regime being used by new scheme, new thought, new players. And Garrett McGuire said a thing that holds true in absolution. It's not about the plays, it's about the players. And if you can develop players to do the things that you want to focus on and that you will feature, you will be better. You will be better if your players have a greater understanding of the plays asked to be made from them, by them. The plays, everybody runs the same plays. Route tree doesn't change. You can adjust it, adapt it, torque it, twist it. But the reality is the 15 spots on the field to throw to and the limited amount of time forced by boundaries, by sidelines and end zone and officiating and whistles and play clocks and hits. All of that stands in line with then ultimately within this thing, the people who make the plays are more important than the plays called. Your ability to take a quick slant and against man defense do damage, right? If you can get folks into single routes with man coverage, it changes games. If you have somebody, a player, like the X will get you to the spot with the throw being made and on time. The player has to clear up space for him for separation, be on time, be on purpose, be in the right place, eyes in the right place, hands available and strong, so that if there's friction, if there is contact coming, then you have a plan for it. But if there's no, what they tell you, if you are running and they aren't chasing you, keep running. If they're not chasing you, sit down. Traffic's coming. Don't get hit by a car. That's the rule. Zone coverage, if you're running and they are not chasing you, sit down. And being able to know that players operate different. There are certain players on this Nebraska team that are better against man coverage. There's more freedom allowed. You just have to be better than the person that's defending you in the space that you have been confined to work from. In zone, you cannot bleed. You cannot flow into somebody else's area because you ruin 2 routes instead of just 1. So you've got to be real specific about the space that you're in. We tell you to run the green against zone and then sit in green, and the quarterback will throw you to green. And there's a trust that has to happen between players. Don't throw me into the safety. Don't throw me in a full sprint into the middle linebacker. Just think Dick Butkus sitting in the middle, and you're gonna run a crossing route. Please don't lead me into the lion's den. As a receiver, I just say, look, man, if you throw me into traffic, we're gonna have a discussion and we're gonna have a problem in the huddle. When we get back together, we're gonna have a problem. But playmakers can take simple plays, simple crossing routes, simple slant routes, and turn them into big plays, yards after catch. And not all receivers are built the same, nor do they react or respond the same. Billy Kemp is used to being small and working in traffic. Marcus Washington likes to get his legs long and get super athletic. Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda gives you a little of every level. And I think he's better said that he's better on the outer third. So I'm limited in putting him in the slot and calling the same plays for Billy Kemp IV that I call for Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda. And another phrase has been bandied about and it is used on a high level frequency: positionless offense, positionless football. And it speaks volumes when we're talking about what Marcus Satterfield wants to do with this offense. That the route is one thing. The player that runs the route, when being asked to run the route, is way more important. If I'm running a vertical route, I may not want to run Billy Kemp on the vert route as much as I would Malachi Coleman. Maybe I need 6'5", 38-inch reach on the arms. Maybe I need that more than 5'7" Billy Kemp. Depending on the route, depending on the play, the players will dictate the play call. Situation and circumstance matter. Marcus Satterfield, Matt Rule, they have a lot on their plate. But as much as we say that, as much as it is players over plays, it's also coaches over plays. Coaches matter. We'll talk more about that when we come back to Lock On. We'll dive into the verbiage, the dilemma that comes into play because you cannot communicate in chaos. We have to have those answers. We'll ask those questions when we come back to Lock On. Thank you once again for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Thank you very much for subscribing. We appreciate you clicking the button, and then I appreciate you putting comments down in the comment section. So Jaden Doss, Thomas Fedoni, these are names that we have to prepare ourselves with and think about. But as coaches, it's in the communication with these players that carries the most weight. One, I can teach you how to run a route, but there are times when I need to tell you to communicate in chaos. Imagine a coach and a player having a communication in general, a conversation in general. And what he says, I can tell you that, oh, everything is okay. Now, turn that into chaos and set it on fire. How I say everything is okay is important. The verbiage that's used for a post route, it'll have a different nickname depending on the coach. Some coaches take the route combinations and put them, they call the play based on the combination. I could say sluggo and it tells me, okay, here's what in the slant and go what I want. But to the outside receiver, it'll give me some information. If there's a slot receiver in play, it'll give me some information. To the quarterback, it gives me information. Bang 8, that tells me as a receiver what the coach sees and what he plans to throw me into. Quarterback, what the quarterback knows. I can change everything. I know that if I need for him to be quick, be quick, be quick. That means I need for him to get his head around earlier than he normally would. And I need for him to get off the line of scrimmage. Stacking routes and getting back on the line of the route because, again, space matters. In every sport, space equals offense. Offense equals space. So as a receiver, if I've got another receiver outside or on the opposite side and we're going to cross, our levels have to be working with each other and not against each other. We don't want two receivers from the slot meeting in the middle at the middle linebacker running into each other and not having anything in place. Different levels allow us to put more duress and more pressure on the defenders. The linebacker hates to have to choose between a fleet receiver getting behind him and a big receiver crossing in front of him. He has to make a choice. He absolutely has to make a choice. And the verbiage will tell us in mesh situations what to expect. You can actually change. Audibles are vital. And they're practicing. They're not currently practicing in front of the 50 or 60,000 that'll be in Minneapolis, or the 50,000 that'll be in Boulder, or the 90,000 that'll be in Nebraska. So your ability to communicate and identify that, listen, the routes that you ran in high school are the same as the routes you run in college. They just have different names. And it depends on the coach. It depends on the players. Sometimes players get to name route combinations, but the route tree hasn't changed. It hasn't. So if you can run all the routes on the route tree, and then you figure out from a coach what he wants to call that route. As soon as they can communicate that, it makes it easier. As a quarterback, Jeff Sims now will have to look and be able to say, he'll be able to communicate with Marcus Washington and Billy Kemp without giving it all away. Omaha is not just the capital, right? It's not the capital. But Peyton Manning turned it into the capital of audibles in pro football. He made it the most prominent name in audibles in all of football. Omaha. Well, thanks, Peyton. Appreciate it. By the way, you could have said Lincoln. Like Lefty Lincoln. Like that would have been easy. That would just Lefty Lincoln, Lucy, Little, Lion, anything. You could have used Lincoln. That verbiage matters. You could have done more for us. That's all I'm saying. I know you're still mad over getting your head kicked in by the black shirts, but that's okay. The verbiage matters, and being the toughest part for a new coach and a new coaching staff is that, one, if they've not all worked together, they have to come up with a common set of words for everything that they want to use. What Marcus Satterfield used for his route combinations, it could be numbers. He could have said 8, 6, and 5. from left to right. He could have just said, okay, I know how this reads. Or he can call it by a name. He could call it UCLA, and it would have, you can get the same route with different verbiage. Matt Rule, Marcus Satterfield, Garrett McGuire, they all have to get on board with the same verbiage. And then the players have to get online with the same verbiage. And sometimes they get confused, and it's happened. As a coach, I have called some things a word that I used in a former school, and then the players will look at me like, hey, coach, I don't know what that is. The big part of camp is getting in line and on the same page with how you're going to communicate what's required of you when chaos happens in front of 90,000 people, screaming at the top of the lungs. Can a coach on the sideline at the 50-yard line communicate to a quarterback standing at the 8-yard line? And yeah, there's a voice in his head, but even those people have to learn how to communicate. Most of summer camp and fall camp is about communication. It is about getting on the same page and learning the words that matter, and then being able to change things when chaos happens. And the easiest way to change chaos is when chaos happens, slow down, and chaos ceases to exist. You have a way to communicate. And when chaos happens, it's important that you're all on the same page. They've got a lot of work ahead of them. I'm just going to point that out, that a lot of the conversation, especially with the infusion of young receivers and the fluidity of the offensive line, if you're having Teddy Prohaska sit out some time, Marcus Washington is sitting out some time, Nuri is sitting out some time, the verbiage has to be the same. 3 of the 5 offensive linemen may understand the audible because they've heard it 80 times. The freshman redshirt may not be as familiar. And you also better have a way to communicate that in chaos. Verbiage is important. It's a big deal. New coach, new coaches, new players. There is a huge, huge emphasis on getting the words right. 17 days. That's what we're talking about. We'll throw it a break. When we come back, we'll close out this episode. We'll talk about who's ahead, offense or defense. That answer, though. Hey, gang, DP here. And thank you once again for making Locked On your first watch and listen each and every single day. Your Huskers every day. That's what it's for. And that's why we're here. That's what we're doing. A huge shout out to the Go Big Red Pros, the folks in the NFL who had quite a good week in exhibition games. Trey Palmer with a touchdown reception, and the whispers and the hype out of Tampa is that Trey is actually worked his way up to receiver 1. And I don't think Husker fans are surprised at all because we saw the kind of year that Trey Palmer had, and we asked questions about why Trey had so many other receivers picked ahead of him. But he showed up in Tampa, and he's doing the dang thing. And for Adrian Martinez, game-winning quarterback sneak for the Detroit Lions. Get them to a win. Congratulations to that. A big sack for Garrett Nelson. He's becoming a fan favorite down in Miami. 2 receptions for Travis Vokolek, 3 for Samari Toure, and to my knowledge, 1 for Jack Stoll. Also Ben Stilley with 3 tackles in his game for the Cardinals. So a lot of the Huskers had some success this weekend, and we will continue to support and follow along the way. Well done, well done, well done. I wanted to close with this. The Huskers scrimmaged on Saturday, went live for a bit, and the thing that happens is with a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, I always know, unless you have a full return on both. So let's say that there are 8 starters returning on offense, 8 on defense. That in the first scrimmage of the season, the defense is going to be ahead. The defense is going to be ahead. That's generally how it works at every level and on every team. More so when the defense is implementing and playing in a 3-3-5. because it makes identifying what you're going to do, what your responsibilities are, what your keys are, what your focuses are, what your attack points are. It changes all of that. And for new offensive players in a new system, the first time you go live, guess what? You're not gonna measure it the right way. You're not gonna see it all the right way, and you're not gonna communicate in that verbiage in the right way. It's too much to ask for. So before everybody else gets in a deep panic about this Husker offense, I'll also say this: the offense, if you're gonna run the football, it certainly helps to have a healthy offensive line. Not sure that that's what's happening there. You're not getting all the projected starters in the lineup or on the field. It's a real thing in having to deal with new players, new situation, new circumstance. The defense is ahead because there's more smoke and mirrors. They're tougher to identify, tougher to locate, and quite frankly, playing at a faster clip than the offense. But the offense will have time to get it right. They need to get healthy, and they need to communicate. The three things that will break down an offense, whether it's an experienced one or not: turnovers, penalties, and not knowing your assignment. All three of those things can be fixed with repetition, repetition, repetition. Do the base things well. Or as my coach would say, do less, better. That's what we're hoping for. Again, thank you for making Locked On the first watch and listen each and every single day. We'll close with the three words we love so much. Go Big Red.